genuine love for humanity. To build something on the basis of humanism means to build something on the basis of real love for humanity. It is not possible to build a genuine society, one which is truly dedicated to collective welfare, if its most intelligent and active members, or those who are more developed than ordinary people, constantly evaluate their contribution to society in terms of profit and loss. When love for humanity is the primary concern, the question of individual profit and loss becomes secondary. However, I cannot entirely dismiss the question of personal rewards, because if people incur losses, their love for humanity may be affected. If one's personal interest suffers seriously, or if for one reason or other one's survival is threatened, one should, in a society based on mutual love, have the right to demand redressal. In a healthy society where the only binding ingredient is genuine love, how will it be possible for coercion or legal compulsion to manifest this love, the true expression of society? I have already expressed my lack of confidence in the success of economic idealists and those who believe that the continual propagation of idealistic philosophies will create an ideal society. Nor can I support those who resort to violence to build society, because there is no doubt that those who are coerced into submission because of their helplessness, sometimes they are not even aware of their fault, will try to resort to violence and bloodshed in retaliation at any moment. In fact, it is the inherent nature of human beings to express suppressed propensities. If some people want to suppress the inherent nature of others, they will have to radically transform that inherent nature itself. The issue in question is based on this fundamental principle. Thus it is a complete waste of time to act on the basis of a short-term plan only. It is natural for all living beings to search for a way to express themselves fully. Sometimes this expression takes the form of crude physical pleasure, and sometimes that of subtle psychic pleasure. A little while ago I said that all crude objects of enjoyment are limited in nature, and thus their accumulation by any one individual is not desirable. Let everybody enjoy as much of the subtle psychic world as they can, let them accumulate as many psychic and spiritual resources as they want, but there must be provision for the application of force if needed to prevent any one individual from accumulating excessive physical resources. The application of physical force will, no doubt, deprive people of some of the wealth they have accumulated or decrease their opportunities to accumulate physical wealth in the future. But it is certainly not impossible, through proper education, to transform people's desire for material pleasure into a desire for psychic pabula. In fact, the desire for physical or psychic pabula springs from innate psychic longings. The desires of the crude mind are easily satisfied. However, I object to calling the desires of the crude mind pure psychic longings. This type of education is essential in society today. Such an approach does not deny the world, as do impractical idealists, nor does it attempt to suppress the higher propensities of the human mind, as do materialists. Unless people's propensities are directed towards subtle forms of expression, their minds tend to get enmeshed in thoughts of petty enjoyment. People who portray themselves as saviors of humanity and espouse high-sounding philosophies from public platforms at the tops of their voices, while at the same time nourishing within themselves the worms of self-interest, can, in any weak moment, deceive the naive public. This is a perfectly natural thing for them to do. Those who want to build a society based on human welfare without first developing themselves fully through spiritual practices, will not only degrade themselves, they will also cause the degeneration of the whole of society. They will not even be able to trust the people with whom they are working. They may initially try to develop their own capacity in order to attain positions of leadership, but eventually their sole aim will be to dominate others instead of developing themselves. When they realize from bitter experience that it is not possible to utilize society as a vehicle for establishing their group or party supremacy, or when the suppressed masses rise up and revolt, the evil tendency to suppress the people will certainly awaken in them. The human mind does not want to be suppressed. It wants to find ways to express itself. The more ordinary people try to resist individual or group dictatorship, the more tyrants suppress ordinary people through violence. Finally, as a result, they do not make the slightest effort to become worthy leaders. Instead they concentrate all their efforts on misappropriating more and more power. The same people who earlier worked for social welfare ultimately come to depend totally on brute force. If any society overemphasizes brute force, the members of that society will start fighting each other and eventually become independent, self-styled autocrats. In such a society the last vestiges of morality will disappear and chaos will prevail. Those who choose the middle course between morality and violence will not succeed either, unless they make intense efforts to eliminate the scourge of meanness from their minds. They will eventually become like those who advocate the path of violence. The endeavor to remove inferiority complexes from the mind leads human beings slowly but surely to the supreme entity and establishes them in universal humanism. Hence it will not do for those who are determined to solve the problems of humanity to accept inferior ideals. Along with this they must also acquire the strength they need to implement their ideals. The active endeavor to acquire this strength is called sadhana, the sadhana of the Supreme. It should be borne in mind that no theory will ever bring people salvation. In fact, it is the inner strength gained from spiritual practices which helps to expand the individual mind. The tremendous force acquired from spiritual practices helps to bridge the gap between the harsh realities of human existence and the supreme desideratum of human life. This is an eternal truth, applicable to all spheres of life, social, economic, psychic and spiritual. A person who runs after petty objects of enjoyment to fulfill his or her personal desires lacks the spirit needed to unite humanity. To unite humanity one must love the divine element latent in every human being, which is the reflection of the supreme entity. Love does not arise in the hearts of those who are not inspired by or not sympathetic to the lofty ideal of unqualified universalism. It is completely meaningless for people to try to do something constructive if they lack cosmic ideation, if they have not learned how to accept the most magnanimous, universal, omniscient supreme entity as the object of their devotion, because it is an eternal truth that those who have not adopted such an outlook are bound to disappear into oblivion after inflicting a great deal of harm upon themselves and society. Like any other problem, great or small, there is only one way to solve economic problems, and that is through genuine love for humanity. This love will give people guidance, it will show them what to do and what not to do. It is not necessary to study great numbers of books or to rely upon those who speculate with the future of the silent masses. The only essential requirement is to look upon humanity with genuine sympathy. Let me give a simple example. Those who are conservative, that is, who do not believe in violence, may argue that in the process of abolishing the zamindari, landlord, system or nationalizing large-scale industries, society should pay adequate compensation for everything it acquires. Those who, on the other hand, believe in violence, but do not believe in changing human hearts through spiritual practices and spiritual education, argue that the capitalists have plundered the wealth of society for so long that the question of compensation does not even arise. Those who have genuine love for humanity, however, cannot accept either of those viewpoints. If large enterprises are acquired by paying compensation, the owners will have to be paid in installments, which will take a long time. During this period the public will not get much benefit. Seen from this perspective, compensation is not a suitable solution. If, on the other hand, there is widespread confiscation of property, a large section of society may face economic deprivation, and as a result social balance may be lost. Not all those who own land or industry are healthy, able-bodied or young. Many of them are sick, invalids or elderly, and some are widows and minors. If all their property is forcibly confiscated without compensation, what situation will they be in? Furthermore, not all property owners are rich. Many are poor or belong to the lower middle class. Even if the policy of compensation or exchanging one property for another of similar value is not accepted, those who cherish genuine love for humanity will take a sympathetic view of the plight of those who find themselves in difficulty due to nationalization, and will act accordingly. A monthly pension or a lump sum should be allocated to old people, invalids, children and destitute women. Opportunities to earn a decent livelihood must be provided to all those, young or middle-aged, who are able-bodied and healthy, If they have no alternative means of support, such employment opportunities should take into consideration their abilities as well as their needs. If a proprietor or an industrialist has invested all his capital in a large industrial enterprise, then after his assets are confiscated he or she should be employed in a similar profession according to his or her ability. If, out of vengeance, some powerful group or individual forces such a person to work breaking rocks or as a porter in a railway station, circumstantial pressure may compel him to resign himself to his fate. Those who have assumed power may derive some sort of sadistic satisfaction from this, but the people who are subjected to humiliation and torture and are forced into an occupation which they find demeaning will die a premature death. We must not forget for a moment that even those who have continuously exploited others and suppressed their legitimate rights are human beings. The human family includes everyone. We have to move unitedly along the path of welfare by helping everyone to rectify themselves and adapt. If we try to progress while holding on to a feeling of revenge towards those who committed mistakes in the past, we will be following a suicidal path.